What? Are they going to be able to get somebody up here?
Of course, ma'am. We're coming up to you.
Well, there's no one here yet, and the floor is completely engulfed. We're on the floor, and we can't breathe.
Okay.
And it's very, very, very hot.
You've got to make it stop, and you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all. There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious that you're so sick at heart that you can't take part, you can't even passively take part, and you've got to put your bodies upon the gears, upon the wheels, upon the levers.
Freedoms, free access, information, truth, theory, conjecture, debate, discussion. These words that inspire you. Well, then welcome to Revolution Radio, where we search and help you search for the truth. We shall not be deterred. We shall stand tall. We stand together to fight against the attempted destruction of mankind from forces we cannot see. We must prevail. We are commercial free. We are 100% listener and user supported. We are here for you, so stay tuned and prepare to be awoken.
And welcome to another episode of Phenomenal E.T.s here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I am your host, Tim Dalger. My guest this evening is Marcia Schafer, founder of Beyond Zebra. You can find her at beyondzebra.com, an inventive consulting firm to give aspiring leaders the skills they need to build a better future, and combines knowledge of extraterrestrial reality along with a hint of mysticism in her training of up-and-coming entrepreneurs. With clients in over 35 countries, Marcia is dedicated to changing the course of our future. With backgrounds in science, medicine, and business, Marcia holds a master's degree in business administration and a bachelor's degree in nursing, and has undergraduate studies in anthropology. Marcia is an award-winning author and has been featured in magazines, radio, videos, and television. Quite the interesting background, and it is my pleasure to introduce Marcia Schafer. How are you doing?
Fine, Tim. Thank you for having me on today.
Great, and this is going to be a special show because we will not be taking calls this evening, and we'll just go on with an interview, and hopefully everyone enjoys out there here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Marcia, other than what I've stated, or maybe elaborate on the intro, tell us about yourself.
Well, what I do is a little bit unusual, is that I embrace 4 distinct areas and bring them into one collaboration. I cover extraterrestrial reality, I cover animal communication and the sentient life that they have, and I cover, most importantly, afterlife, the soul, what we're all about. Now, with those 3 areas, I take them under one umbrella because they help us to understand that there is a greater reality than the one we know. There is much more than the ordinary, everyday life that is out there. If we're able to penetrate it, we can have a lot of empowerment to our life and be able to live with a greater grasp on our own self-direction. The 4th aspect is the future of business and business pioneering. And the reason why I feel that is so important is that knowledge and information is one thing, but we live in some very precarious times, and it's very important for us to take responsibility for our life on this planet. How we, as humans in the 21st century, live is that we express ourselves through business, through commerce, through commercial enterprises. That is the action arm of our lives. And so by bringing in extra knowledge and mentoring and training people so that they have a greater grip on the greater reality that's out there and who they are as a person, they can then turn around and walk into something of a humanitarian venture, building up infrastructures that are parallel to what is there now on the world, particularly in the United States, and build businesses that serve us in a different way, that feed new needs that we have, needs that also speak to our spirit and our soul, as well as to our pocketbook. So essentially, I'm about helping people disengage from the current paradigm of life that's out there so that we can then be in a new position with genuine, hard hands-on skills to build the future that we deserve to have and can have on this planet. And so I bring in pets, spirits, ghosts, extraterrestrial reality, and the future of business. And I kind of say, and laughingly, that's the only place in the world probably you can find them all under one roof.
Well, that's very good. If anyone out there wants to find Marcia, you could visit her website, Beyond Zebra, just the way it's spelled, no special lettering, beyondzebra.com, and get further more details. Pretty interesting, anthropology, E.T.s, E.T. reality. Let's get into that, if you will. I know that you're an award-winning author. I have yet to find that book, though. I guess I've been shuffling through the wrong pages.
Let me give you a little heads up on the book. The book is basically about the life I experienced, what I learned from a lifetime of extraterrestrial contact. I've had contact, face-to-face contact, not, just the channeling or feeling like someone's, in connection with me, face-to-face contact with many different races since I've been born, since I was in the crib.
Let's get
into that. In the late 1990s, I was directed to write a book about it, and I initially refused. But after I thought about it for about a year and a half or so, I decided to consent and do so. And it was a bit of a struggle, and I finally let go, and I put it all out there. And to my shock, the book went without ever advertising it, and never spent a penny on promoting it. It went around the world. It was read in over 25 countries. It won an award from the publishing industry. And so it's been out there since 1999, in various editions. What I'm doing now, and why it's hard to find, even though you may be looking for it online, is that I'm letting it go out of print at this point. It's still selling, but I'm a little bit tired of dealing with it, so I'm planning to let it go out of print. There's only about 500 copies in print left, maybe, and I sell them exclusively off my website, and I like to reserve them for clients, essentially. So, I might change my mind, but right now, that's where the book is. And it gives a lot of information about things that I've observed, what I've learned, what they've taught me in terms of how memory triggers are used, cognitive impulses are put in there, different things I've learned about the different races, how they sometimes will test us a little bit, and then if we pass those tests, we'll be giving new levels of information. And then the second part of it is extremely esoteric in terms of it does have to do with channeled information that I received at a period of time, some of it even in rhyming verse. And it talks about observations about our life, observations about the potentials for our future, gets into the nature of those types of things.
Incredible when you deal with face-to-face contacts. We haven't had anyone here at Revolution Radio with such an experience. I've been trying to contact such people as Travis Walton, but that I guess everyone has as well. But you're not as well. Not to say that, but you're not as well on the main. Like you don't have a movie about yourself and your contacts.
and I've never been interested in that. To me, I'm all about making a difference and working with people, and so I don't get out there. I used to speak, years ago, and it's rare to get me. I'm kind of like you have to get on the underground to find me. But people do. I have clients in 45 countries at this point that I work with.
Well, yeah, because what would happen if you did go mainstream with this? They would just try to shut you up.
Actually, I don't think so. Some people say that, but, I really don't care what people say about me, and that's what's given me such a tremendous power to chart my own life. I think that I have a good ability because of my background and the way I come across, and, I kind of look like a middle-aged suburban person who's been in the business world or something, and so I can really penetrate into different arenas, and I really do reach, I can reach the corporate world, I can reach scientists, etc., fairly readily. I think for me personally, it's more as I like my privacy quite a bit. And I know that when you step out, as I've experienced it in the early days, sometimes you have to give up that privacy, and that's not something I'm always willing to do. some people really love the limelight. I'll get out there and do a job if I need to do it and talk about it, but I'm not going to make it my career potential. If it happens, I'll deal with it, but it's not something I'm naturally seeking.
Incredible. Well, that's the thing. When I first started seeing my experiences, nobody, even not letting anybody know, just the immediate family, they all called me crazy. So I'm guessing that you didn't get a lot of support in the beginning. And I think it was in the early 90s or mid 90s that you came forth with your E.T. experience. How did that go over?
I was actually shocked because I did expect a lot of, ridicule and difficulty, and I found that probably based on the way I presented it, that if I remained grounded and rational and not proselytizing and not trying to push myself on anybody, I was shocked because there was such a receptivity to it, and people wanted to know more. So I learned a lot in an insidious way about how important communication is. And communication is such a two-way street because so often we go out there and want it to be about us and this is what I have and take it and, I'm serving it to you and I'm forcing it on you. But I also listened a lot to what people had to say and their feelings about it. And, I took it from a different level of really focusing on where they were and who they were and what they needed to know about it, what they wanted to know about it. I spoke to them in a responsive level. So I think that's why I had such a surprising, overwhelming reception. There were so many people who looked at me and said, this is not what I expected. In fact, even with the book, when I was hiring an editor for the book, and I showed up at this place, and I'm in, I think I was in a business attire and a briefcase and everything, and there were two women there, and they looked at me, and they looked at each other, and they burst out laughing. And I said, what? And they said, oh, my God. They said, we put on little sundresses and stuff because we thought you were going to be like this wacky New Ager, and you come in like...
Brother.
Not that, I am a wacky New Ager, nothing wrong about that at all, but... I kind of walked through mutual paradigms. As I said, I was really shocked at really how people were somewhat receptive and wanted to know more.
Yeah. Well, if you've got a good background, then people can listen to you. It depends on what you've brought to them before, and the same deal as if you can trust somebody when they bring you that kind of information, as in, let's say, face-to-face contacts. That's pretty serious. And when you get to that level of being able to tell somebody and not having, let's say, business partners or peers think of you as crazy, and it's pretty rewarding that, okay, I'm actually getting some validity that, okay, I'm not alone at thinking that I'm crazy and what have you, because an experience like that must definitely bring the attention, I guess you could say.
Well, there's the experience and we're talking about, and then there's the people's reception to it. And let me address those separately. One more thing about the reception I think that makes a difference is I always say, look, this is what I've learned and experienced through many situations over an entire lifetime that I've had dealing with this. I am not saying you have to believe it. I am not saying it's the absolute truth. And I always go into, we only are seeing a piece of the puzzle of what's going on, and this is what I believe is behind it. But I always define my limitations with the information. I never say, it's absolutely positively good, it's positively evil. Instead, I go into the concepts of how we understand good and evil, and we may not be seeing a full picture of everything. So I think that's part of why there has been the openness, because I don't try to define it for other people. I just offer it in terms of, look, we have to all figure this out.
Yeah.
We never have the full puzzle. And that's one of the things I've learned very strongly with my contact experiences over the generations, is that I realize that there's always another layer. There's always something else that I've learned. I think I know so much about an area, and then I'll have another experience which will bring in an extraordinary dimension to it and increase my understanding. And so it's brought me a lot of humility to knowing that there's always another piece of the puzzle to learn with this.
Yeah.
Now, moving into the contact experiences, where you've talked about them being, jarring, they can be. I'm, for the audience who doesn't know, I'm in my early 50s, so I've been going through this a long time. And one of the things that happens is that when you have the actual face-to-face contact, first of all, it's very different from, the channeled information. It's very different from having like a communication situation with them, and it can be somewhat jarring. What I feel happens is that the ego portion of our psyche kind of goes, whoa. Even though we know, I've been through this so many times, each and every time I kind of go, oh, whoa, here we go again. And I believe, based on my journeys and understanding, that we have different aspects of the strain of consciousness that we know as ourselves. You're Tim or Marcia, but I think that it's a multi-dimensional level when we get right into who we are on a soul level as a being. And that the ego aspect of our consciousness, as our current psychology calls it, kind of goes, whoa, because it's an immediate slap in the face to what you know is reality. And again, as I've been through it so many times, right now I'm very comfortable in my environment and looking around my familiar surroundings and talking to you. But if it were to happen right now, there's still a part of me that would go, oh, whoa. And so what is important, what I think we've lost as a culture by having this hidden from us, is that we don't know what to expect. And so that creates a fear. And then there are feelings and sensations and occurrences that happen. And when we don't have this information and it's been ripped out of our history books on who we are and what we're about, then we don't have the tools to be able to deal with it on an immediate emotional basis when it happens. And so, people like me can provide bits and pieces where other people can add it into their repertoire of understanding and say, okay, this person says this person says that. And at least if it happens to someone who hasn't had it before, they may be able to pull from some of our experiences and say, okay, this is what I've heard happens, I'm kind of recognizing it. But there really should be, in my mind, we should have had this in our history. It shouldn't have been stolen from us, so that we would know what to expect and also be able to determine our rights and responsibilities with it. For me, I turned it into a spiritual learning and educational experience, and I know from some other people it's been absolutely terrifying for them, and they haven't ever been able to reconcile what's happened to them.
Wow, that's incredible. I just want to let our listeners know Marcia Schaer is our guest this evening. You can visit her at her website, beyondzebra.com. And I greatly appreciate you joining us. I could see that you're very busy. You're dealing with clients with over 35 countries. That's got to be quite the interesting one. And then when you speak about face-to-face contacts, that's something that I'd really love to get into. And so maybe if you can tell me, you've said that there's more than one race that you're contacting. And how do they appear? What do they look like, if you don't mind?
No, this is what, the reason why I speak out is to share this with people. There's many, many different races from what I've experienced, and I know I've only experienced the tip of the iceberg. But one of the things that helps us to embrace that and understand it is, Tim, just look around on our own planet and look at the different degrees of life and scope of life, whether we're looking at reptiles or birds or mammals or amphibians or biological entities or plant life. There's so much just here on our own planet. And even when you look at some of the marine biology, it's stranger than any extraterrestrial you'll ever see. It lets us understand that, there's a great diversity. So imagine that without the confines of the human earth and going beyond that. Now, what I've experienced during my life is that I break it down into two general categories. The first category I've termed the biologicals, and those are extraterrestrials that, like humans, seem to have bodies, with what I suspect are lifespans affiliated with them. And then the second category are multidimensionals, which are forms of consciousness that no longer have the need to be in a biological body, that they've superseded that. So that's how I generally break it down into those two categories. Now, when we get to the biologicals, and this is what most people are familiar with, there are many that are out there. Some of the ones that I've experienced are humanoid. They look like us, and I've been led to believe that there is some type of maybe genetic or historical connection between us on the human evolutionary tree. But I've been also led to believe that there are biological differences, that if we were to be able to have, not necessarily tissue samples, but biological lab samples, and comparing, there would be differences in the readings or the characteristics of the lab samples, even though, as I said, they do look quite a bit like us. People have assigned names that I will use. For example, people always talk about the Pleiadians. There is definitely a humanoid group that comes to visit us. The ones that we often see that Steven Spielberg has made oh so famous also are out there in terms of types of the ones that people tend to call the little grays. Though my experiences with them are a bit different than you often hear about. I suspect that there may be different types of them, because I've had different experiences with some that have been a little bit darker gray and some a little bit lighter gray. When I was younger, I noticed they seemed to be a little bit darker, and that they had more of a task-oriented focus to them. When I became older, I noticed the ones who came were a little bit lighter color, looked just a little bit different, and seemed to have more of a conveyance of emotion towards me, of a warmer emotion towards me. So as I've gone through, I've tried to collect information, through my observations as well as my actions. Are there reptilian ones? This is where I kind of get the most bombastic about it, because I've encountered reptilian races, but the things that I read about in the extraterrestrial UFO lore do not match at all to what I've encountered, and seem to be a bit, from my perspective, almost nonsense to me. I read things about people saying, oh, these lizards are here and they've been a part of our history and they're trying to take us over, and, they're part of the hidden government, blah, 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 blah. Never experienced anything like that in my life. Now, what I always qualify, Tim, though, is that just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean that I'm right or that it's not out there. But I'm just saying it doesn't match. One of the most profound experiences that I've talked about often when I've spoken out about the reptilian races is that they had an interesting point that was once made to me, is that they told me and shared with me that they had a culture, a civilization. They talked about like arts, literature, those types of things. But what they pointed out to me was what they felt was a distinctive difference between them and humanity, at least with the group I was talking to. And they said that in their civilization, they shared that when there is a child, that child has equal importance to every being. So while we have traditionally more of a conventional nuclear family, like it's my child, and even though I may appreciate your child, my child has precedence because it's my immediate family, and I would do much more for my child than your child. Exactly. In their civilization, they said that child is everybody's child, even though it may have its family unit. It is regarded by another as no less important than their own. And the reason behind that is, I was just going to say, the reason behind that is because they understand that that is the next generation, and that is their survival into the future. And so I thought that was an interesting disparity between humans and them from what they pointed out. Now, what were you about to ask me?
Well, is it almost like a tribe, like a tribal kind of camp where everyone's child is everyone's, and it's not sort of, it's... You know what I mean? It's not as exclusive as it is.
It might be. Remember, now here's the other thing I point out is that when I am being told information, shared information, this is something I guide audiences to be aware of, is that, we never know. It could be a lot like a job interview. You're going to tell everybody the best of what you did, and you're not going to tell the worst.
Yeah.
So, you have to, this is why I guide people. I say it's not about extraterrestrial reality. It's about learning to think smartly. And that's actually what I've been asked to do with humans, is to teach them that. So, when I'm given the information, there's a part of my mind that's fascinated, but I'm also going is this an accurate representation, or would it be like me trying to put my best foot forward? It'd be like showing tourists the best that there is. I wouldn't take them to the slums and the crime-ridden areas. I'd take them to Disneyland, So,
you're right.
So when I'm given information, this is what I'm given, but I don't know anything to back it up, or whether somebody's just being, almost patriotic, whatever. So, but when you use the example of the tribal, it very well could be. I don't know. I got the feeling it was more of an advanced civilization from things they showed me.
Exactly. Well, I'm very interested in that topic, and we can get into questions on your book if you have. I got my producer here slash wife, who's definitely done some great work here. I greatly appreciate her help. If you'd like, we could talk about the book here. I want to know our place in the universe. Have they had a message for you? What's our place in the universe?
Well, when you say our place in the universe, can you define that more in terms of what you're meaning in terms of, because I can put my own interpretation on that, but I want to follow along your thought.
Okay, well, your book, Confessions of an Intergalactic Anthropologist, the book explains how cosmic visitors can be here, often unseen, and shares their explanations of who we are and our place in the universe. So maybe if you can elaborate. Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, what I've been led to understand are a couple of things about it. First of all, we need to go into the origins before we go into the future. Now, one of the things I've learned is that most of the races, I find amusingly, will take credit for creating us. And there's some hazing types of things that I always can tell a novice who's had extraterrestrial contact versus someone who's kind of more sage about it. Because almost every race will tell you two things, and one of the two things is, we're responsible, we created you. Now, what I've been led to believe, though, by some of the more advanced teachers is that in terms of our origins in our place in the universe is that, not knowing whether this is true or not, but what had been shared with me was that we actually are a collection genetically made by geneticists of not just, the common extraterrestrial lore people hear about, this theory that we're a part of the Anunnaki and that we're from them and they made us and, that's who we're connected to. They say it's not quite like that. And they say there were actually 12 genetic contributors of extraterrestrial species that went into the human template as it was made. Is this true? I don't know. I'm only sharing what's been shared with me. So, in terms of our origin, they said that there was genetic tinkering here on the planet, that this was a planet that was originally designed as somewhat as, at one point, for at least one or several races, almost like a genetic zoo in regards to that a lot of experimentation went on with multiple types of species, animals, primates, etc. But when it came to the human, it was actually a genetic experiment of not just one race being responsible, but 12. And there's a lot of information, at one point I could go into with that in terms of details of how they did it and some of the genetic variants among us and then some of the recessive things that they didn't expect to have happen.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, you can get into that, and maybe as well, alien races declared that we are on the threshold of meeting our ancestors, and maybe you can get into who are our ancestors, our true ancestors. So go on.
Well, again, what I understand is that there were several races visiting the planet. And the popular mythology in alternative New Age lore is that it was just an Anunnaki, but that there have been several different races here working with the planet over time. Now, when say in terms of meeting our ancestors, that's an inclination in terms of that we are at a point in history where it is very likely that sooner rather than later, the extraterrestrial riddle is going to come out in the open. One of the things that they'd shared with me in the late 90s was that they actually had a targeted plan. It was never a definite plan because they always have to assess the state of situation on our planet. But what their goal was that around between 2002 and 2004, they were hoping then that it would be brought out into the open, that there would be some type of intervention where it would begin to be introduced into the cultures, into the societies. And at this point, I do believe before 2020, possibly even around 2016, this is something that's going to surface for us worldwide and globally.
Great. All right. Well, I just want to let our listeners know that they are tuned into Phenomenal E.T.s here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. My guest, Marcia Schaer, and you can visit her website at beyondzebra.com, and we're going to take a station ID right there.
Welcome to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are a user-supported website. What does that mean to you? We are not funded by the corporate machine. We will always strive to give you the truth, always give you an opportunity to respond, rebut, contribute. I'd like to ask you all to visit our homepage, see all the things that are there. Your donations not only fund the radio station, but they keep alive the website, which supplies you with archives, a forum, a great library where you can download documents. There's a survival store. You can learn how to build a tribe, learn how to home camp, how to build a bug-out bag. There's a survivor blog. There are links to weather, news, space information, government documents, the seismic activity that's going on in the globe, air and water information, news about our Earth in general, whether it be the magnetosphere or the radiation, links all over the place, all over the world, HARP information, T-shirts and stuff. The swag store is a wonderful place just to get a little memento. Make sure that you're with us in the chat rooms as well, and you have your choice of Java or Flash chat. And be sure to check out the Crow's Nest, where our financial advisor, the Crow, keeps you updated on any financial news that may affect your finances today. Thank you, and make sure you're with us for all the live shows. Check the schedule. There is a link for that as well on the left-hand side of the homepage. And we exist today only because you have done one of the following things: donated via the PayPal button, mailed a check directly to the station. Maybe you visited the swag and bought a cup or a keychain. Maybe you've told a friend. Maybe you've shared us on your social network. Maybe you've taken part in our Twitter coaching program. Whatever you've done, we thank you, and we ask you to continue to do it. Whatever you may donate today will help keep your voice alive tomorrow.
And we are back here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I am your host, Tim Dalger, with guest Marcia Schaer of beyondzebra.com. I hope you checked out her website. It kept me busy for days, I'll tell you that. No, that's a lie. No, I'm just playing. We're having jokes here behind the scenes. I greatly appreciate you being with us, Marcia. Maybe a question about your book. We are about to enter a chapter of evolution that will witness genetic mutations and DNA-driven changes in consciousness. What kind of genetic mutations are we talking?
Here we're going into the deep stuff. Well, one of the things that we tend to forget as we go about our everyday life is that we are an ongoing evolutionary species. We tend to think of evolution as going backwards and something that happened to us. But we are constantly evolving. We're evolving socially, we're evolving as biological units. And it seems like that there is the potential that we are going to continue to evolve and that we may see some genetic mutations that can make a difference as to who we are. Now, let me stop for a minute and flip over to consciousness and who we are as conscious beings. Is that, right now, it is my opinion that something is going on in the world today. There seems to be this huge cosmic switch that has flipped on in an unprecedented manner that is causing droves of people, huge numbers of people, who before weren't questioning their lives, to be suddenly looking at the world with new eyes, wondering more about the eternal questions of who are we, where have we come from, delving into esoteric matter, also having esoteric experiences of their own. And this is happening around the globe. You know, as mentioned in the beginning, I have clients in, right now, it's up to 45 countries and keeps growing, it seems. You know, I don't know how there could be more than 45. I mean, I'm sure there's hundreds of countries, but I'm always amazed at how many people end up in my door. But the point is that there's something going on globally that is causing, like, almost like a silent, spiritual, cosmic revolution.
Awakening.
People,
yeah.
You know, and so with that, you know, they had proposed to me something years ago that was likely to happen to us. They said that, you know, don't forget that you're on a planet that is moving through space. It is hurtling through space. And what they indicated is that there would be a time where we would reach a new region in the cosmos, in the universe, where we would reach a new, we want to say, environment, where there would be different conditions out there that would impact life on Earth. And by that, what I mean is that, you know, we're used to things in terms of cosmic radiation coming down and affecting the Earth, and we'll hear about solar flares impacting us. And if you even think about the sun and you think about how extraordinarily far away it is, yet it can turn your skin brown, you know, and it can have these amazing, it makes plants grow, yet it's so far away. So we don't think about the invisible things that are out there impacting us. Now, when it comes to genetic mutation, there's several ways it can happen. You can have spontaneous mutation, chemical, you know, mutation through radiation. And so what was indicated to me was that there would be new types of transmissions and particle emissions that would be reaching us because we would be in a different region in space with different conditions associated with it. And as a result, that would have an impact to trigger genetic mutations, much the way that, you know, radiation today, regular radiation as we currently know it, the forms of the rays, can make that happen within our body. So I'm wondering, you know, if that is really going on, that is part of this consciousness revolution that is beginning to surge and to burgeon and to grow worldwide, and that's part of the trigger behind it, because what they said is that there would be genetic mutations that we would begin to experience.
So,
you know, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, go on. I mean, you're talking genetic experience, and a question then would arise, would they have revealed any kind of secret contacts with world government leaders or military?
You know, other people go into that real deeply. My journey with them has been more about my own and a private spiritual journey and learning. You know, has there been contact? They said yes. You know, they've indicated yes. There's something extraordinarily controversial that I almost didn't put in the book, but I did. And that was back in 1997. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and back in 1997, there was an incident where thousands of people around the state reported seeing UFOs at night, and it made national headlines, and it was quite a commotion. Now, about a week after that happened, I had a visit that changed my life dramatically. You know, that was when they came and they said, we want you to come out into the open, we want you to write the book. You know, a lot of things happened to me during that particular visit. And one of the things that happened was they claimed, I hate even saying this because it's so far out and it just makes it sound so ridiculous, but they claimed that the leaders of our country and the leader of what was then the Soviet Union and some others, they said that they were meeting with key leaders around the world at a particular time to talk about the future of, you know, disclosure, you know, and what was going to happen. So from a personal level, that was one of the times that they had discussed it with me. Now, we have to go into something else, though, to address that. Okay. And that is what often happens when you have contact is you can also not be fully conscious, and you can go into a semi-fugue state. And so whether people are, you know, having the classical type of people in government and political positions are having the classical type of contact experiences that we see in the movies and that happens, or whether, you know, they are functioning on another level of consciousness in a semi-fugue state, do they remember when they have it? Because a lot of humans don't remember when they have contact. It's covered up. So I don't know a lot of details, but they had mentioned that there was a summit that had gone on to discuss that at the time.
I know.
So that was one of the more personal experiences I had in terms of this type of thing. Now, the intriguing thing is that over the years, in a few years after the book came out, I was speaking at an event, and a woman came up to me privately, and she was one of the only person, if not the only person who's ever said this, who said that the night that this happened to me, she had something very similar happen to her, that she had been ongoing contact, and she had the same information, and we talked about it privately behind the scenes a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Because they told me that at the time they were meeting with me and all this was going on in preparation for the future, that they were meeting with a few hundred other people, not necessarily politically, as people like me behind the scenes at the same time. And so she was able to talk about it and say, I had the same thing happen. I was there.
So do you figure that's why they're not interfering with our self-destructing habits?
Well, I think I look at this from a different perspective, Tim. I look at it from a more spiritual perspective. And I say, why should they? I don't think they should. I think it's time that humans get off their ass and take responsibility for their own behavior and stop looking for an extraterrestrial, an asteroid, an angel, a god to come and save us. This is about us learning to become loving, mature, caring, compassionate beings. And, I wanted to say, for Christ's sake, shut up and grow up to us as a race, and do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very good point, Marcia. My throat is going. I'm telling you, that cold is getting around, and like I said earlier, I got the oil of oregano in me, and I hopefully it takes some action soon, because my throat's going. So, okay, how about this? I've got some more questions if you want to take them, if you like.
Sure.
Okay, great. Have they explained how they actually traverse the universe? Is it an actual physical distance, or is it more multidimensional?
Well, that's a really good question. It seems also that the different races have different degrees and levels of technology affiliated with them. For a number of them, it's a combining of consciousness along with sometimes with the technology, or it's a consciousness maneuver, and that there are ways that you can focus your consciousness in connection with what do we call it, the cosmos, the universe, and be able to move yourself in terms of reality to a different place in space-time. But I have seen things such as, if you're going to talk about and use the term a craft, there have been times where it almost seems like it's a living extension of the being, and that their consciousness merges with the technology's consciousness in some way, whether it's an artificial program or robot, or, gets into all questions of really what is life. And some of them do seem to be using a craft, where others can just shift the focus of the time-space continuum. When you do have actual physical contact, I mentioned in the beginning that you will feel differently, and what I feel is that they're altering the dimensions, because you will often feel very, very funny. Sometimes you will feel a rush of energy surging through your body. There are times when you'll sometimes feel almost rendered incapable of moving until a certain amount of time has passed, and then you pop through it. But what I believe is happening is that they are breaking through the dimensions when they come, and that's why I feel the way that I do.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us are thinking in 3D, and we need to start thinking in higher dimensions, because then with the concepts start becoming reality, things you never thought possible, well, they are possible. Yeah.
Right. We have our own defined degree of understanding. And one of the things we tend to forget is that science is always changing. What was magic and impossible in 1810 is de rigueur and just general knowledge now. Even if you look at, our iPads and, smartphones 25 years ago was nothing more than, watching an old Star Trek episode and watching Captain Kirk say, "Beam me up, Scotty," and that was so far out. So the science is always changing and moving based on our capacity to understand and explore. And we forget that. We become very rigid. So Right now, we're bound by concepts of no more than E equals MC squared. What we know in our limited capacity and understanding of time. But these things change, and the parameters become very different in different dimensional frequencies. And all of a sudden, the rules and laws that bound us no longer apply. And this is what I believe you are alluding to in terms of, that things are different. And so that's why we need to think differently. Yeah. And what I've always learned is it's not what we know, it's what we don't know that will set us free. And that's what the human needs to grasp onto at this point.
That couldn't have been said better. That's very well put. Marcia Schafer, we can find you at beyondzebra.com if anyone wants to check out her website. Feel free to, and like she said, she wasn't putting the book out too much, keeping it for close contacts, I guess you could call them. maybe.
Well, I definitely like to make it available to clients, but I mean, anyone can order it off the website. I'm just going to sell them till they're gone.
Okay, well,
It's been out for about 12 years, and as I said, it's been selling for a long, long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of an underground cult classic, is how I affectionately call it.
Yeah, she says out of her book, she even goes into what these several E.T. races are like with detail, maybe rivaled only by the U.S. military and their manuals on extraterrestrials. And
yeah, that was a comment, I think, by when I did After Dark magazine.
I get stuck on big words like rivaled. Rivaled. You see what I'm saying? I'm French, and I even pronounced it wrong. So this is my downfall. I'm not a reader as much as I should be. I'm getting into it more and more now with these interviews, but that's only been about, 45 minutes? No, I'm joking. Actually, yeah, I've been doing this for about 4 months proudly, and I really am into it. It gives me a great new perspective of it, because I thought it was just about looking up in the sky and seeing a UFO, but now it's about opening your mind and looking within and rising to the occasion, and
Tim, you're just the perfect example of what I've been talking about that's happening worldwide, is that people are changing their lives and their priorities and the way they look at the world in a way that they never had before. And this is a phenomenon that's not documented as yet phenomenon. This is a huge growing and emerging trend. These are things I deal with in the business side of it. And so, people within this group, this burgeoning group, are beginning to want to seek each other out more, and as I said, they have a different need, and they redefine their need for goods and services in a way that needs to be fed differently than traditional conventional society. This is huge. This is like, the beginning of the Great Western Migration in the United States, if you're looking in terms of the impact it's going to have on the future.
Can we both
back in the 1800s.
Can we both agree that what helps it is what brings us down, as well as the internet? The internet is a huge platform for everybody to get together, such as we are ourselves right now, to talk about it, so that other people can find that outlet and that platform and be, like I said earlier, validated in maybe their experiences and what have you. And you don't really have that on the mainstream. Sometimes the local media gives it 30 seconds. Oh, we seen a ship, but and maybe the Phoenix Lights, like you were saying, that got a lot of attention, and we've had Jeff Willis on as well, and he's an adamant fan of I think his website's UFOs over Phoenix.com.
I've met Jeff, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, because he was at the MUFON conferences that they've had, I think even earlier this year, and we've had Clifford Clift on last week on Thursday from MUFON, so that's pretty interesting, and it's a great platform for people to understand a little bit more about it, because you don't get those platforms, and I like to dedicate time to it and dedicate my energy, because I never knew what I was getting into when I first started to see these UFOs, and why were they contacting me? I mean, or not necessarily contacting at first, but...
Well, you were also paying attention, too, and that's part of the thing, is to start to pay attention to not only what's out there, but also what's in the skies, too. But when you talk about the Internet has served a significant role in terms of bringing people together in an unprecedented manner, making the information readily and quickly available, and it has reshaped society and cultures. However, what is just beginning to be paid a little bit more attention, which needs even more, is how vulnerable it has made us. Because when those electronics go down and fail, then people have given up. Many times there are other ways of being able to communicate. So I always say this is a time where we need to be able to embrace the best of technology, but we also need to develop the technology within ourselves. And some of the people who are really well on the pathway have well-developed intuitive capacities where they're able to telepathically communicate with each other in this Underground Railroad type of manner, so that, the internet and email and cyber actions are one way. But if that goes down, they have developed themselves in a way of communicating that the average population hasn't, and that will have a great advantage.
It's proven that's a better form of communication, is getting away from the electronics and just going out and kicking a soccer ball. I mean, that's proven, right? The love, you got to get back to the love, and, typing messages, you just don't get there. And
well, yeah, typing messages, it's really been interesting because it has redefined especially the younger generations, but it's also, disengaged people from actual interactions. People will send a text message rather than talk to somebody. So, it's all about balance, and it's about being able to use products and technology in a way that enhances us and doesn't emphasize our shortcomings instead. And what's at the heart of being human? Communication.
Yeah. That's the number one form, communication and love and peace. And if you can find, a balance there, and you're good to go. And if you just keep an open mind, especially with extraterrestrials, and that's not just the only thing that you cover, but if you keep an open mind with that, I guess sky's the limit. I mean, it's incredible what we can achieve by just opening up. I mean, what are they talking about? Sending people to Mars right now in capsules, and the spaceship is now coming back.
Yeah, and they're using, the old-fashioned form of again, the body has to be there. This is the thing that not only we're in terms of going out, but, when we ask about how they get here, a lot of times they don't, you don't have to have a ship to travel the universe. You don't have to have this idea of the way it should be. We need to go beyond that and explore what can be, not rather what is. And we tend to think in terms of the box that we know, and we try to take that box with us as we go forward. But sometimes that box doesn't fit.
Yeah, they're not paid to get the answer. They're just paid to find the answer, in the sense where they have that technology to teleportate, teleportation. I'm jumping over my words here. They have the technology, and they're not releasing it to the public, and they're always, maybe 50, 60 years above us and beyond what they show us, and we don't know where our money is going. Trillions of dollars are being put into black ops, and basically they're not paid to give us what we want to find as what we see as real answers. We just get the story from them, and we nod our heads, okay, but we don't ask.
But you bring up such a good point, Tim. It's you know what though? It's our own fault because we allow it. And that's what today is about. It's about the silent revolution for empowerment. It's because we allow it. We allow ourselves to be fascinated by Paris Hilton or Lindsay Lohan or some tripe like that. And instead of really paying attention to what's out there, it's these the reality shows and everything. We feed on pablum that keeps us distracted. So in a way, I feel our own stupidity, we deserve what we get. And it is time to stop that and start realizing that we need to demand more. The only time change has ever come throughout societies is when people have really demanded change. And, it's been through some trauma, and it's usually accompanied by the big R word, revolution. And there needs to be, a peaceful revolution at this point, but people have to take responsibility. And if you don't demand the world to be different, and you don't do your part to create that different world, then it's not going to respond and it's not going to happen. And that's why this is the part of action. When I see things like these movies like The Secret and everything, I just kind of roll my eyes because it placates the person into thinking that life is going to change if you sit there in a chair, chant Om, and say, oh, hooray, Oprah. But That's not what it's about. It's about learning the other part of the equation. The secret is that, there's visualization intention, but there's action and responsible action to make things happen. And part of life is about discipline and strategy and thinking about, how do you want to make things different, and then going ahead and doing it smartly. And this is what we have to do, even if it's as simple as, changing what we're watching, or just, the programming on television, the media responses to things and what they're covering. If you show a certain appetite for something, they're going to continue to feed us junk food, and we're going to continue to get lazy and fat, as we have been. Or we can become lean, smart human beings who are charting our future. And right now our future is at stake. The future of the planet, the future of humanity, a lot is at stake. And this is the ultimate test of the human being, is to see, are they going to respond? Because we're not going to make it if we don't respond and demand different things by changing. And we start by changing ourselves.
You know what I have to say? Every time I have a guest on, I learn something new. And I would say what I've learned from you, I'm learning and a new perspective, because I'm getting to know you're touching points inside that are really connecting, if you can say it, put it like that. It's really hitting home with what you're saying, and I do not want to participate in that system that does, indoctrinate fatigue and to just keep you lazy, television. You know what? I look at all my bills right now, and cell phone, internet, just to communicate. That's all it's for. And just to communicate with, right now we're thousands of people, but this is a radio. But other than that, email and just calling people, I'm paying upwards of $200 with the both of them combined.
Absolutely.
That's atrocious, and they get away with it because we allow it.
That's absolutely right.
And we keep
Same thing with politics.
Yeah.
Same thing with politics. I talked to an audience a few weeks ago, and I couldn't believe what came out of my mouth, and I'm going to repeat it because it wasn't planned. It just came out unscripted. And I was talking about, is there ever any change in the political parties that constantly fight? And I said, honestly, if we were going to be honest, we would rename the Republicans and the Democrats to Asshole A and Asshole B. And, but then they would fight over who's going to be A and who's going to be B.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I refrained from pointing the finger because I felt like that's what was my downfall. Is I always had the finger pointed at myself, and I learned, if you don't affect anyone else's universe and you concentrate on your own and you better your own, you can't help but maybe better the people around you. And some people you're not their cup of tea, and that's okay, but you need to sort of, like I've always agreed to point the finger towards yourself and work from within, and you can't go wrong, and that's where we've been, has been our downfall, because a lot of us are saying, oh, we shouldn't be at war, we shouldn't be this, and we shouldn't be that. Well, we got to start looking within each other. And I was speaking with your wife the other day about war and how these veterans are not getting the medical attention that they need, right? And this is the whole purpose of a lot of these legions that are out there, and they collect money for poppies. And I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they are trying to get funding for their members and their veterans when the government sent them there. The government should be taking care of them. And it's not the case, and I don't think it's the case in every case. And it's a horrible thought that now you have young teenagers not looking at the consequences, the big picture, and supporting the war and supporting doing that, and seeing as all these things, these signs should tell you we shouldn't be doing this. And if you spoke to any one person individually, they would say we shouldn't be at war. But you get them all combined, and it's like a pack of dogs. I've got 5 dogs. They have this pack mentality that just it brings on this sort of, violent thoughts. I can't explain it, but you'd speak to somebody, anybody, and say, should we be at war? And no, but there's huge trillions of dollars being funded in an operation that none of us agree upon. But why do we do it? This Occupy movement that's taking place everywhere. I agree it's a great thing to do, right? But they're shutting them down everywhere.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know what
there's some reminiscent hints of the 1960s all of a sudden popping up all around us in terms of some of the things that went on. But yeah, what we need to look at when we want to have change is that we also need to look at doing it effectively. And sometimes some of the older processes work and are effective, and sometimes they aren't. But we also have to look at, the world as it's evolved in terms of technology, things that are out there. But right now, as you started to point out, that there is there are big, huge corporate complexes that are basically driving the interests of the world. And how do you change that is that you basically change your consumerism and what you are doing or how you are living your life.
True.
And that's going to be one of the pivotal things, and that's why I do the work along the business side as I do, because consumerism is a major factor in feeding the complexes that are co-opting our ability to live as a peaceful society. And so we have to reframe that.
But
it's so complex right now, but in a way it's almost so simple. Is we just have to redefine how we live.
Well, that's what they do all in the commercials. Every time you're watching TV and they push it, and all these new movies that are coming out, they're talking cartoons, and they're showing kids about cell phones and these new movies and all the DSIs, all these little gadgets and what have you. And that has been the new era, and we've shifted from that era to now we're doing this, and all the kids want is what everybody else has. And
that is not new, Tim. That has always been. You go back to every generation, and what you have, particularly when you have a child who's emerging into adolescence, is you also have an overwhelming need for conformity. There is not a lot of emphasis on individualization. There is a little bit more today, somewhat, particularly when it comes to dealing with the issues of children's sexuality and some of the problems that have been going on there in terms of bullying, etc. But overall, when it comes to the human species, and particularly in the younger stages, there is a conformance desire.
Sure.
See, this goes back to the extraterrestrial aspect, because what I have learned from the extraterrestrial races is so much about humans and human behavior. And even though it sounds a bit of hubris, I actually consider myself somewhat of an expert on human and human behavior. And again, in studying the species, that there is this great need to conform. Even when you look at human leadership, what you will often have is, historically, we have not had the best and the brightest as leaders. We've usually had the heights of mediocrity as leaders. We tend to get scared of people who are outside the mainstream somewhat, and we don't trust them. Historically, even over the past few hundred years, you look, what did we do to some of our Reformationary, the period of Enlightenment, some of our thinkers, look at Galileo and Newton and Bruno, etc. We tend to behead them, we tend to burn them, we tend to confine them. Even today, we will ostracize, in the 21st century equivalent of, medieval torture, we instead will ostracize them and hurt them professionally and try to disparage them and take away any type of credibility that they might have if they are so far out of the box. Extraterrestrial reality is something that really most people think is a high likelihood at this point, with what they know in terms of the gains they've made in terms of understanding the planet, science, etc. But, there are still those who will be in their pockets who will just say, oh, that's so silly, that's not going to happen. For someone like me who happens to know it as an absolute fact where it's indisputable, I look at somebody like that gently and just smile and feel a little sorry for them, because the difference between me and them is they don't know and I do. They will always have to wonder. But, for the most part, most of the people today really do have an intelligent inquiry about the topic. But there are still those who want to disparage the whole subject and discourage them from looking at it. Because it's going to also change our paradigm and our understanding of life. I had one man who was a dentist once say to me, well, it's not that I don't believe in it, but I don't want to believe in it. I don't want to know because I don't want it to impact my life in any way.
That's like my friend. And I think we stopped talking because of how adamant I was about it. And that's a great story if I can explain it to you after a station ID. Is that okay?
That's terrific.
Okay, great. Any of our listeners out there like to join her website and check it out, you can go to Beyond Her. You can check out Marcia Schaer, my apologies, and check out her website, beyondzebra.com. And I say her because I'm getting to know her, but her name is Marcia Schaer, and that's how you got to do it.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious that you're so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears, upon the wheels, upon the levers.
That's right. You've got to put your body upon the gears, upon the wheels, upon the levers. You're tired of sitting in your recliner wondering if the talk radio that you're listening to is actually presenting you with facts or propaganda to manipulate the masses. How do you do this? It's too expensive. I could never get on air. I'm not a DJ. Well, now all that is possible at TotalTruthRadio.com. That's right, for $50 a month. I repeat, just $50 a month. You can be the proud owner of your own radio station that is on air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, presenting facts that you research, things that you can prove, things that are close to your heart. Stand up against the machine. The more of us that stand up, the more of us that express our voice, the more of us that hear the truth, and that's the goal. We know that there are things going on in this world that are just killing the masses. They're dumbing down the populations. They're controlling the sheep. And you're tired of it, yet you just sit in your lazy chair and you listen and you listen and you listen. And you get more frustrated. The reason you're frustrated is because you're only listening. Start speaking. Get up out of that easy chair right now. TotalTruthRadio.com is selling affiliate radio stations for as little as $50 a month. That's right, $50 a month. And this just isn't the radio station. It is also the technical support that you need to get the station up and going. You have no computer skills. You don't need it. Go to TotalTruthRadio.com and look for full details. We started with 50 spots available. We are down to 44. These will go quickly. At $50 a month, a one-time fundraiser would pay your costs. So there's no reason to sit there looking at your bank book and saying, I can't do this. $50. You're on air when you want to be on air. You're saying what you want to say. You're able to do and present what you see as truth, what you see as being important. So get up out of that chair right now. Go to TotalTruthRadio.com, where you're going to find an awesome opportunity, and you're going to be able to stand against the machine that is manipulating us all.
And you've got to make it stop, and you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
And we are back here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, another installment of Phenomenal E.T.s with your host, Tim Dalger, special guest, Marcia Schaer of BeyondZebra.com. You can find her website there and a book that she has, Confessions of Intergalactic Anthropology. Get it while it lasts. I heard that it's running off the shelves quickly and there are no more prints being made. So I greatly appreciate you sticking around with us, Marcia. We got a couple more questions if you wanted to take that, and then maybe we can go off of that. Okay, great here. Since so many people are claiming that extraterrestrials built the pyramids, have you ever asked them if they do? If so, why did they stop teaching us a whole lot instead of just sharing certain often restrictive or vague knowledge with individuals?
Okay, you're asking two separate things. First of all, in terms of the pyramids, it's never been a discussion, but it's been my understanding that they are extraterrestrial in origin, that they are also used as beacons that can be seen from space, and that there's a whole lot to them. I do not know this for a fact. As I said, it's just been, something that has been my understanding in terms of that. And I already forget the second question.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great. Okay. If so, why did they stop teaching us a whole lot instead of just sharing?
Wait a minute. When you say why did they stop teaching us,
well, like stuff like pyramids and that kind of knowledge is incredible. We don't have, maybe monuments nowadays that are being built, or as far as I know that there's all these signs across the globe, but what are being frequently done right now is maybe, why aren't they doing that?
Excuse me. What I think we're looking at, though, is the whole thing of, we're talking about, for example, the pyramids of thousands of years ago, quite a few thousands of years ago. And if you look, the past few thousand years, the entire extraterrestrial part of the equation has been ripped out from us and has been lost. First of all, we have two things. We have history and we have pre-recorded history. Pre-recorded history has been totally lost to us. We have no idea what went on there. My feeling is, and my understanding, what I've been led to believe, is that there's been multiple civilizations far beyond anything that we envision, and with advanced technology of varying degrees. So we've got that part. And then, we have our entire history has been defined to a point where we really don't even know what our history is. Different civilizations have added things, have taken things out. Religious institutions have added things, taken things out, put things in, and fooled around with it. We don't even know what our timelines are. All we do know at this point, though, is that for the conventional history, that extraterrestrial reality has been taken out of that equation, and that there hasn't been any evidence per se of them here on the planet. However, what we do know anecdotally is that a lot of people over the past generations have been having certain types of experience that they say that they are having extraterrestrial contact. And those individuals who are having that are reporting all kinds of information that's being given to them individually. So it's not here as part of our culture and civilization, but instead it seems almost like an individual tutoring type of session that has been going on instead, because it's been removed from the mix on a large-scale equation. So people of varying degrees are getting all kinds of information. They, some very advanced, some just kind of this more spiritual pablum types of things. So it seems like that there's a lot being deposited in the individuals in a one-on-one types of basis to be pulled out. So it's being done a little bit more surreptitiously than before. We don't really have any pure records of them being out in the open, though my own experience has been that they have told me that in certain aspects of civilizations that they were out in the open, and that extraterrestrial activity was just a part of life. They said part of what we tend to call it Atlantis. We tend to lump everything before a certain point as, oh, that was part of Atlantis. So I'll use that terminology, but they have told me that during the times of Atlantis, extraterrestrial activity and crafts going back and forth to the Earth were a matter of course. I have also been told, not knowing if it's true, I believe it's true, I do not know that it's true, that in the early ancient seedlings of Egypt, in the early parts, before the later dynasties, that extraterrestrials were out in the open and walked among man in those periods. So when we talk about, what have they done and what have they given us, we really don't know. I mean, we're making assumptions that the pyramids are from the extraterrestrials. I believe that they were, but we don't know because all that information has been left out of our history. So, what have they given us in the past? What are they giving us now? Who knows?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
But it's up to the person to delve, because there is a lot of information. There's esoteric information to wade through. There's historical information to wade through. So I think there is a lot of stuff there that they have left to us. But, since they've gone underground, hey.
Is it producers like, is it James Cameron, one of the biggest ones out there? He's been quoted as being one of the best historians of our time because of all the movies and the hints that he does in his movies that would indicate extraterrestrials are coming or have been here before.
Well, I think when you talk about his movies, I mean, if you're talking about Titanic, no. If you're talking about Avatars.
True, very true. But there's been more like the one with I only know him from Face Off. There, the
I don't know what Face Off. I don't know.
The Cunning Man there, but no, Face Off is not one of his movies. I'm just saying, I forget his name. It's losing me, but it speaks about the the name's losing me. So we'll just move on. Okay. How about this? Give us a
Is this going to be edited out?
No. I think we're going to keep it. It makes it original. It makes it original. That's how it
great.
is. That's how many. How much longer do you want to stay with us? It's really up to you.
Maybe about another 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Yes, exactly. We'll make it another half-hour segment, and then that'll be proper to go. So, okay, how about the truth behind the Phoenix Lights incident? Well, what's the truth behind it? I know we talked about it.
Well, as I said, my experience was a little bit different because when the Phoenix Lights incident took place, even though it took place, part of it was over my home, I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't even at home that night, and so I didn't know what was going on. But 1 week to the day, later on March 19th, 1997, that was when I had the visit that changed my life completely and was like no other visit I ever had. And during the course of that, they had made reference to activity that had recently taken place that they were trying to get people's attention. So I had not come out. I did not really know anybody of the extraterrestrial involvements very much or anything like that. But I'd asked around a couple people that I believed to be involved in it, and that's when I learned that the Phoenix Lights had happened. And so I learned about it from them, not from the media, in that regard. What they said they were trying to do amongst everything was, as part of an event to get people's attention back to, this whole topic. So, as I said, many people from around the state had seen it, and at that time, ideally they were looking at hopefully having, in the coming years between 2002 and 2004, some type of event where they were planning at that time so that if people around the world looked up in the sky, simultaneously they would see things. So someone in China might see something in the sky, someone in Italy might see something in the sky, someone in Mexico might be something in the sky. That was one of the scenarios that was being proposed, so that then there would be, in a way, no doubting it, that something was there. Now, there are also, no, they didn't bring this up, we could think that people might get scared by that. They might think, oh my God, is this an invasion or whatever, when the goal would be just to say, there's definitely something out there. But as we can see, that never took place. That didn't come to pass. And what I was told is part of the reason it didn't come to pass is that when they had this meeting that I was talking about beforehand politically and were discussing it, there were a lot of people from certain interests who felt that they did not want this to happen, and that it also had to do with the impact of the results when George Bush was first taking office, in terms of, it had a lot of political influence. Whether this is true or not, I don't know, but this is what I was told, in terms of, they wanted a representative. They wanted to be at the helm if disclosure happened. Certain people would have certain types of political leanings or backings so that they could control and influence the course of events to go along a certain degree, which again has to do with, keeping large-scale, large-moneyed influences and their priorities at the forefront.
So basically Bush wasn't the key, nor is Obama the key to getting that information out. So.
Oh no, the president never is. No.
So why would they look to the president, knowing that the president is maybe just at the bottom of this hierarchy that we know as a
Well, what makes you think they're, how they're looking at the president?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the president, or the leader of any nation is an important person, and has a lot of influence, both from a symbolic and a realistic standpoint. But when you look at the overall direction of the planet and who is pulling those strings, it's seldom a political leader.
Yeah, That's true. It's the puppets. That's the puppets, and there's the puppet masters, and there's everybody else. And I mean, we're always in the seek for truth and trying to find that out. And we've been pushing. I guess my government has released the UFO files. The Canadian government has, but America has yet to relinquish all of their findings, although they have released some files. Other countries are getting on board, and I don't understand why these extraterrestrials, and it's not me to question it, but I have that curiosity in me to say, how come they don't just put the topic to bed and come out and say, we are real, maybe we're going to help you, maybe we're not, but we're here, and stop thinking it.
Well, because this isn't, this isn't their planet. This is our planet. And, for most of them, there is a sense of responsibility in terms of how far do you go in terms of breaking it, to a planet. One of the things that I've been informed of is that generally they look for a percentage of readiness among the general population. Because, they're not here necessarily to scare the bejesus off of everybody. They're here more to, I believe, to take us to a next level of understanding. So if they pop forward at a point where the planet's going to go into ultimate panic, who is that going to serve? But if they pop forward at a point where there's been decades of readiness and preparedness, and the people will respond differently, then that's going to be a little bit more positive.
Well,
so
we know that we want to be ready, we want to be prepared. The powers that be are not allowing that to take.
You know what, though? You're speaking for yourself. There are, as we talked about, there are people who feel differently about different aspects of this, and some of them, there are some people who will always look and say, this is not a good thing for the planet. Now, this goes into something very, very deep that I was going to be bringing up in the future with people, in terms of also that, we need to make sure that we really know that certain groups who come here, it always reminds me of that old Twilight Zone episode, How to Serve Man. Gee, I don't know, you're probably too young for that. But there was an old Twilight Zone episode where the aliens came and they promised man all these wonderful things, and, they had this book of, How to Serve Man. And everybody was going off with them, off to the planet and doing this trade and everything, and the humans would load up the planes and never, the craft never be seen. And then finally one person cracked the manual and understood what it was and went running up to get, somebody and said, get out of line, come here quickly. And they said, I understand, I know what the book says now. And they said, what? They said, it's a cookbook.
Hilarious.
So what I'm bringing up, though, is when the time comes, there's also a point where so many of us are going to be so enraptured with the idea of whatever group it might be that might be breaking through, and so convinced this is only for the spiritual and the positive aspects, we may not look close enough as to the implications it could have on our society long term. And this is why I've been asked, it's all about thinking smartly and understanding what's out there and having the smarts to ask the right questions and look at things from multiple angles. Because remember, we talked about the human always wants the easy answer. They believe you're going to fix us, you're going to help us, you're an angel, you're benevolent extraterrestrial. We also have to make sure that, one, if it is an extraterrestrial intervention, it's not a staged intervention, and two, that we are dealing with a situation where it really would be beneficial to humanity, and that's going to be very hard to know.
Staged intervention is a very good point, because half the population doesn't know they exist or maybe has heard of them. I think a lot of the 7 billion has heard about aliens. Mind you, 2 billion are kids. Maybe.
Well, it's also in a lot of the ancient cultures, etc. But it's also possible to have a faked intervention of extraterrestrial contact.
That's their plan, and I think they've been doing that. I mean, you've seen September 27th of last year, the CNN had the UFO disclosure with all those ex-military sergeants and what have you. And then they said that the aliens would be coming down in major cities and revealing themselves. Well, they didn't so much reveal themselves, but they came over New York few weeks later, about like just over 2 weeks later, over the skies. They film them across the globe. They're getting filmed everywhere. So it's almost as if, like, why don't they just come out with it and get it over with? Because they're here. We know that. So it's not up to us to tell them to come. Well, we need to rise to the occasion, and that's what I truly feel. But I think the system does not allow us to, because it's too caught up with the 9-to-5 hustle and bustle, and you have to work to live to work, and you don't get that leisure time to focus on the bigger picture, in my opinion.
Well, that's just it. The human essentially, doesn't want to admit it, but it is a slave species, particularly in developed countries, because we are keeping ourselves occupied to have material gain and material things to make our lives simpler and easier. What that does is, what that takes out of the equation is the time, as you said, for self-reflection, because even in our activities that we use, we are keeping our mind on constantly, whether it's television or Twitter or Facebook, or the internet.
Yeah.
And so what happens is on a spiritual basis, you don't allow the higher consciousness side of life to have the opportunity to break in almost a meditative type of reverie to share information that can help you grow. If you're always keeping yourself busy and distracted and the intellectual strain of cognitive reason thinking on, then you're not allowing the higher consciousness to break through and share things as often. So, there's a lot of implications to everything that goes on. But again, as we started out, as we were beginning to say, it's really all about us, and not only what are we going to ask for, what are we going to demand, how are we going to manage ourselves, but most importantly, and as I said, the extraterrestrial messages, that what they've asked me to really focus on is teach people to think smartly. Ask questions, look at multiple angles from things, and don't just accept what's before you.
Yeah, because if you do and you get spoon-fed all of that, you sort of get satisfied and you live your whole life not ever asking the real questions, and you don't get what your soul is supposed to get out of this this spaceship. And I feel that I've had this battle with a lot of people. They think when you're dead, and that's it. Well, no, this is just a vessel, and maybe you come back to Earth, maybe you don't, maybe you go somewhere else, but there's a spirit, and there has to be, because it's a conscience aspect of it, where it's not no more physical when you're dealing with the thoughts that you can deal with and seeing extraterrestrials and being able to envision what somebody else is thinking and telepathically communicate or hypnotize somebody and enter their past life regressions. That is all something that's conscious, that is, I think, higher than this physical body that we're living in. So I do think that we continue on to something else. What it is, I don't know. But you can see that in human beings. Some are really negative and really, they do not grasp the whole meaning of things, and then some are so angelic, loving, and all about others, and they don't think of themselves anymore. My mother being one of them. But you see that it's like different. It's like different. My mother, let's say, I compare it to, she's been here 500 lifetimes, whereas somebody else might have only tested this life for 50 times and has come back, and she has just had that experience, and she is like, emotionally grown, and it didn't just take her 55-year lifetime, but that many times of practicing and coming back and trying it out again. I don't know, that's my opinion. That's just, it seems like there's more to this than just the physical part of it.
Well, most cultures tend to support what you're saying, and even if you look at, the heart of Buddhism, which is such a large preponderance of people who practice that religion over the planet, it's really only, some of the isolated, some of the developed countries and Western cultures that dealing so much on rational thought and current ideas of science as to, what it's about, and leaving out the beauty of the equation of spirituality, and the everlasting soul. My beliefs are somewhat similar to yours, but I just know that they're my beliefs and they're not what everybody shares. So, until we begin to embrace some of those things beyond the hidden doorways in terms of the paranormal, spirit world, and bringing them into a greater understanding of our everyday world. I don't think we're going to penetrate too far past where we're at. But I have infinite hope for the human race, and I will never give up on, recognizing all that's beautiful and wonderful about us. Not that I'm not seeing, some of the more despairing things about our limitations and the horrible things we do, but I have hope, and I definitely going to hold on to that. And I think, that's why I'm kind of a kick-in-the-ass specialist, because I try to remind people of the potential and the hope that we have, but we just have to act and be responsible about it.
Yeah, I that's a very good point. It's almost the perfect way to go out. Because yeah, I know you were like, you were coming down with it. It was beautiful. It was a great transition. Because yeah, like I agree with you. You've got a very good outlook on things, and I think it's a learning process. And like I said, I'm very like a pup, and I'm still learning. And I see my faults, and I see where I can get better. And I think they encourage me to think beyond just the matter at hand, and don't sweat the small things. And I'm still learning. It's always a learning process. It's never a mistake. I think you experience life, and you know not to do it again. It's not a mistake, because how would you know that it's wrong unless you've done it and you've experienced it? Now, I'm not talking for every aspect. There's a few things you can't do, and we understand that. But the foolish things that you get yourself into, and you learn from these mistakes, and you hire your consciousness. And it seems like the older you get, the more you wisdom that you hold, and it's always true. It's a cliche, and it's just the way it is. And there's some children out there that have found the way, and it didn't take long. And star children, and there's communicating with different alien races and going to different planets, and we all progress at a different stage. And I'm loving the experience. And I see that you're a very good teacher at what you do, and I appreciate myself. This is just coming from me. I appreciate everything that you do. Your website is wonderful, beyondzebra.com. And I do apologize for my voice. I think I'm coming down with a cold, but trying to fight it off. Yeah, I'm trying to fight it off as best as I can, but until then, we'll just have to suffer through it. And I greatly appreciate, Marcia, Schafer, you coming on today, and I greatly appreciate your time, and I hope to do it again sometime, and I understand you're very busy. So anyone who wants to get a hold of Marcia can visit her website at beyondzebra.com. It's a great website. It will keep you busy for days, I think. Just looking at the front page here, you got a lot of
life isn't a soundbite, and I try to. The website is a little bit different. It's an experience. You need to take a little time to get into it, but that's what I also get into in terms of life and teaching. Is you got to look a little harder, and there's always hidden things beneath the surface, even in the website.
Yeah, no, greatly appreciate it, Marcia, and have a wonderful day. And
thank you, Tim.
Till next time, maybe we could do it again, and I will.
Sounds great.
Like I said, that we were pre-recorded this show, so we can air it for you later, and I will put it up on YouTube, and I'll send you a copy if you want to listen to yourself. And I hope I've done you justice.
Sure you have.
And thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Tim.
Great.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, and that has been another episode of Phenomenal E.T.s here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Stay tuned for another crazy, cool episode of Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Whatever's coming up next is what you're listening to.